Hello again. Now, authorities in Johannesburg have announced that they're going to be forming a tactical police unit to deal with cable theft and illegal mining, or so-called zamazamas. At the same time, the city of Johannesburg's MMC for Environment and Infrastructure, Mr. Michael Sun, says cable theft increases during power cuts. Well, to tell us more about this, he's joining us now virtually. Mr. Sun, good afternoon. Thank you very much for your time this hour on Today on ENCA. How come you have seen and found that during power cuts, like currently in this phase of load shedding, we get a spike in cable theft?
Good afternoon, Dan, and thank you very much for allowing me on your show. I think the criminal syndicates are also as smart. They also look online at the load shedding schedule from Eskom. Of course, the ones that we publish from City Power. So they know exactly what time and where there won't be electricity. So it's easier and safer for them, in fact, to chop up these cables and instill infrastructure. Otherwise, when there is electricity, they will go to the extent to damage the infrastructure to cause an outage so they can get to the infrastructure like fuses and underground cables. So certainly the criminal syndicates are also looking at the load shedding schedule so they can go and steal those copper cables out of the ground or wherever in substations.
Okay, so it's like, it's a perfect timing for them. But now I understand the city is going to be setting some sort of a tactical unit to deal with cable theft and illegal mining, among other things. Some people might say that should have been done long ago.
Well, in fact, that the city had always had an infrastructure protection functions in different departments and entities. So, for example, City Power has its own risk management department. Our Johannesburg Metro Police Department, of course, deals with a large part of the infrastructure functions. But it is a different business now. So we need to look at how we reassess the situation of protecting our infrastructure better, especially where we now not looking at just many people think that it's in Nyaupe boys that are digging out for a few meters of cables. In fact, this is not. This is a whole criminal syndicate at work. We have people digging up cables, sabotaging our infrastructure so they can cause an outage, and so they get to the valuable infrastructure. And of course, there are the illegal smelters, there's scrap metal dealers that operate unlawfully. So there's a whole chain of syndication at work. This is why we need to relook at the security deployment, not just within the city, but also to work with external players such as your police services and the private security service providers.
And I see in your statement earlier, you are thanking residents for reporting, but you are warning them not to engage with any of these potential criminals because they carry dangerous weapons. A final question to you. Just want your thoughts briefly, if you may, Mr. Sun. If we know that there's a market for stolen cable, for copper wire, whatever these metals that are getting stolen, why don't we shut those businesses down or regulate them differently? I mean, I had a story the other day that some people steal some of these metals from neighboring countries and come and sell them in the South African market.
But then, when we speak of metal, second-hand metals, we of course, it is not City Power's copper cables. We see traffic lights being chopped down. We see street light poles being chopped down and dragged through the streets to be sold to scrapyard metals. One of the meetings we had led by the Executive Mayor Popalazzi and the Gauteng Provincial Commissioner, General Mawela, one thing I raised was that we need to regulate and enforce the Secondhand Goods Act more intensely. The reason is that, the South African Police Services would issue the license for secondhand goods dealers, but after that, not many of them are checked up on regularly. So once you have this process of carefully and tightly monitoring the operations once the license has been issued, we then would certainly close a lot of the loopholes. And certainly, we don't want to say that, all the second-hand goods dealers are involved in, unlawful metal dealing. But we certainly need to look closely at that sector of the business ensure that we regulate and monitor them better.
I think that's going to be very important going forward. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon, Michael Sun from the Johannesburg Metro Council. Still,